The Right to ECD coordinator joins us to discuss the 2024 Thrive by 5 Index, South Africa's most comprehensive look at the state of our preschool children. The results are sobering. Inequality and poor nutrition are already shaping the futures of millions before they even set foot in school. Tshepo Mantje, thanks for your time. Appreciate you coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the Thrive by 5 Index on ECD. What is it?
So the Thrive by 5 Index is a data set that has recently been published by the Department of Basic Education in partnership with some civil society organizations like Data Drive. And it reveals to us whether young children, specifically 4-year-olds, are meeting their developmental milestones. So the DBE wants to see when young children go to grade R or go to grade 1, into formal schooling, are they developmentally ready? Or as Thrive by 5 puts it, are they on track?
So what determines whether these little boys and girls are on track or not?
So the study looked across the country. So it's our most comprehensive data set we have yet, which is really good because historically we haven't had good data on early childhood development. So they looked across all 9 provinces, looking at over 400 wards and surveyed 4-year-old young children at ECD centers. And what they were looking at were 3 different areas: early learning, physical development, and social and emotional development. And we're looking at whether the young children are meeting their milestones in all those areas. What we find generally is that only 42% of 4-year-olds currently at ELPs, early learning programs, are meeting their developmental milestones, which means
42%.
Over half the young children at ECD centers are not meeting their milestones.
Where are we failing, Tshepo?
Oh, it's sort of a big elephant that we have to take on here. And I use the analogy of an elephant because it's sort of one bite at a time and bringing different stakeholders to the table. Firstly, what I want to note is that access does not always equal quality. When we are solving for access, we have to solve for quality. What we are seeing here is that these young children are at ECD centers, but for the most part, there isn't resourcing, there isn't support going to those ECD centers that ensure that the young children that there are getting actual holistic quality early childhood development. Again, speaking of holistic, is recognizing that when we look at ECD, we're not just looking at the early learning component, but we're looking at different elements such as nutrition, such as safety and security, such as nurturing care. So ensuring that practitioners themselves are trained and capacitated to care for these young children. So in terms of where support needs to come from, it comes from all fronts. Firstly, looking at the Department of Basic Education, which has the function of early childhood development. A lot of work is currently being done around ensuring that centers get registered. So I want to encourage all people that are watching, ECD practitioners specifically, but parents too, to ensure that the centers where young children are going are registered through the Bana Pele mass registration, which can ensure that the Department of Basic Education know where the ECD center is and they can benefit from things such as subsidy and other support of infrastructure and resourcing.
So you've talked about 2 things that concern me. One of those is nutrition, obviously. Does this then suggest that those little boys and girls who come from the more deprived or marginalized communities are struggling more than those that come from families or communities that are better off?
Hugo, the research is really clear. Inequality is affecting the poorest children, the youngest children in South Africa more than anyone else. So what we are seeing specifically is that young children who go to high-fee early learning programs are twice as likely to be developmentally on track than those who are in poorer communities. What we are also seeing is that stunting is affecting mostly young children who are not even at early learning programs. But even those that are at early learning programs are still experiencing stunting, with the research showing that at least 7% of them are showing severe or mild to severe stunting, where 25% of them are showing mild to moderate stunting signs. But this is not only showing half the picture, Hugo, because these young children are currently at early learning programs, which 90% of them are at the very least providing 1 meal. The young children who are left outside of this study are those who are not at early learning programs. And the research shows that stunting is way more prevalent for those who are not at early learning programs.
Do we have a significant number of children that are not at early learning centres?
Yes, we have over 1.3 million young children who are not at early learning programs. And this is why...
And how many are? Just so we've got a comparison.
I'm not quite sure on the specific number of how many are, but far less are at early learning programs right now, which is speaking to that point I made earlier about access and quality, which are the two things we need to solve for. Access means that making centres available, particularly at in informal settlements, rural communities and townships, and also improving the quality itself so that we know when the children are at the center, they are getting holistic quality development. And this is not just in the hands of the Department of Basic Education, but also we would like the Department of Health to come on board, particularly with the stunting numbers that are coming out of the study.
So I'm curious to know, Tshepo, we've got these little boys and girls that are getting into school post-ECD that are way behind in terms of development. That catch-up process, do they catch up eventually at some point? How long does that process take, if at all it exists?
We are seeing that one of the biggest barriers has been nutrition in itself, because this study shows that children who are stunted, who are mildly stunted, are already 5 months behind those who are not. And those that are less stunted are 2 months behind. And when we start to see statistics like the one that tells us that 80% of grade 4 cannot read for meaning, we can root that back to early childhood development. So we really see that catch-up is already a little bit too late. The analogy I like to use is that when we are looking at the fruits of a tree, we shouldn't be judging the fruit when it's rotten if the seed itself was not of good quality seed, if the soil that we planted the seed in is not good quality soil. So this is what we're talking about, is investing in early childhood development. We can ensure that less dropout rates, we can ensure that matric results are better than they are currently if we can ensure early childhood development. And a really strong lever is also supporting the ECD practitioners, valuing the workforce that is there. Because what we have to recognize is that the ECD sector is largely spearheaded by women, by black women in rural communities, in townships that are holding up this sector. So also in supporting early childhood development, we have to ensure that practitioners are supported, capacitated, and empowered to develop our younger citizens.
Tshepo, appreciate your time. Some startling numbers in that conversation as we're speaking to Tshepo Mantje, the Right to ECD coordinator, who's speaking to us about the 2024 Thrive by 5 Index. Terrible, terrible statistics.